Hey, this is Josh from Cattle Decapitation. You're watching CMS TV.
Yeah, so if you want to pull the Dokken bumper up and play that, because that's what I'm going to talk about. I know how people like that.
Oh, here we go.
Hey, it's been 5 minutes, and it's time now for Neeley to talk Dokken on the Classic Metal Show.
Yeah, my nephew James and I, we were on a little road trip with the boys over to Lima, Ohio, and then back over to St. Charles, Illinois. And it was as always just kind of a fun adventure with goofiness going on. But you're gonna love this.
Okay.
So we rolled into Lima, and there was a lot of the hardcore Dokken fans there. Corey Davies from Arkansas was there, and Mike from he's a hardcore follower. He's got like Dokken tattoos all over his body. It's just crazy.
Right.
He's from Windsor, Ontario, and he was there. And Jaron, the bassist with George Lynch's band.
I think I may have met him, but I don't know
him. He knows you. I mean, he knows of you. He didn't realize you and I did a show together. I've known Jaron for years, and he didn't realize he knew of you and Eric's show.
Okay.
But he goes, dude, after all these years, I didn't even know. So we were talking about that, but regardless, he was there with George Lynch, and Lynch played with Don on, the closing songs, both nights. And so anyway, my nephew and I rolled into Lima, Ohio, Wednesday evening.
Okay.
And we got in about 10 o'clock, and the guys got in right about the same time. I think we were just like 10 minutes ahead of them.
Okay.
And we rolled in and just, chatted it up for a little bit and got settled in the rooms and all. And, it was only 11 o'clock.
Right.
And it's like, what do you do in Lima, Ohio at 11 o'clock on a Wednesday? So
pick a country bar, my friend. Pick a country bar.
That's exactly what we did. So we were just like, is there anything open around here? And the gal down at the desk, she said, yeah, right straight down the street, there's a bar down there. So my nephew and I and Troy Patrick Farrell, we all headed down there.
Okay.
So we walk into the place, nobody in there. Absolutely empty.
Sure.
And it was a pretty decent bar, but size wise, and actually a pretty nice place. So we went in, ordered up a couple drinks, and we were sitting there at the bar just shooting the shit. And in wanders this gentleman of color.
Okay. What color?
He was a Swede.
Swede? Okay.
Yeah.
Swedish white?
Yep, exactly. So he comes wandering in, and he's just kind of like looking around, and I go, are you lost, mister? And he goes, no, I'm just checking this place out. Just wanted to see what was going on in here. And he kind of looked like he was a little down and out on his luck a little bit. So I said to the bartender, I said, this man looks like he could use a drink. Could you use a drink? He goes, oh, I'll take a drink. I said, okay. So he bellied up to the bar next to us. And of course, I went into interview mode and was just like, so what's your story, mister? Where are you from? What's your name? And his name was Maurice.
All right.
And apparently he came up from Kentucky, and I guess his sister lives in Lima.
Okay.
And he's an unemployed carny.
Carny?
Yeah, he's
okay.
So of course the first question is well, what did you do in the carnival? Did you run the tilt-a-whirl?
Right, of course.
Or did you guess people's weight?
Yeah. How much do I weigh, fucko? Earn your drink.
But I'll tell you what, once I got this guy going, he had us cracking up,
Nice.
because it was just so funny. But the worst thing about it, and I only found out about this the next day, is that for some reason, Troy is a very social guy, and he likes his social media, and he's on Snapchat and Instagram and Facebook and all this other crap. And apparently, during the course of discussion, he was asking us about us. What are we doing there? And we told him we're at the, with the Dokken show. And, he said he'd take a walk over there and check it out the next night and so on and so forth. So Troy shares his social media stuff with this guy.
Okay.
So the next night, immediately, can you get me a chair and can I get a free T-shirt and can I get
what?
Can I get on the guest list and can I get freebies right away, right?
Right.
So and again, I didn't know because I wasn't involved with that conversation, but
sure.
Troy was telling me about it the next day that he wanted some free stuff and free entry and free shirts and all this other stuff.
Right.
Well, apparently this guy also hit my nephew up.
Oh, nice.
And my nephew gave him $10.
What?
I didn't know this either.
James, what are you doing, bro?
So
James?
Yeah.
James, come on, bro. What are you doing?
Because I just felt sorry for him.
Oh, boy.
So the next day, Troy sends me a post for, I think this was from like Facebook or something.
Okay.
Maurice is hitting me up to pay his storage bill now.
Storage bill?
He goes, "Sup, bud? Great show, by the way. I hate to even bother, but they locked my storage. Turns out they raised money. Let's see, turns out they raised the rate or something. Can you help a brother in any way? I'll pay back once I caught up. Thanks and God bless."
He's a brother now because you met him for 20 minutes in a bar.
So he sent him the screenshot about your account of Lima self-storage is past due of $132. So call this.
I thought he was from Kentucky.
Well, he came up from Kentucky, but he's living in Lima.
Okay.
He said he was staying with his sister or something.
All right. Sister that doesn't have $10, apparently.
Right. So, immediately you buy a stranger a drink and all of a sudden it's, "Hey, can you lend me some money?"
Right.
It's just like, are you shitting me?
That's hilarious.
So we went, the show was real good. It was an outdoor type thing, sponsored by the local businesses and whatnot. It was probably a good 800 people there.
Wow.
For a Thursday night, and it was an outdoor show and everything. And it went real well and people were pretty enthusiastic and they seemed to be having a pretty good time.
Okay.
So I was looking at the marquee over there about the forthcoming shows and they've got like Slaughter coming in and, all kinds of 80s acts coming in there,
Right.
Because obviously that's easy to get and these guys are on a tour circuit all the time. So it's easy to bring these bands in. But apparently Lima is rocking.
Okay.
They like their blue collar rock music because that's basically what they had coming in the next few weeks. So
See, it's an invitation to move to Lima.
Exactly. So the drive over to St. Charles from Lima for the Friday show was 5 hours, but the guys had to drive to Dayton from Lima, get on the plane, fly almost an hour to O'Hare, then get off the plane, get the rental car or whatever it is they were driving. Then they had to drive another 45 minutes out to St. Charles.
Right.
So it's by road or by flight. It came out about 5 hours either way.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And then I had the new truck.
Yeah.
I said, I said, well, you can ride with me or you could just fly like you normally do. Well, the idea was like, oh, you got a truck. We're going to put all our guitars and our suitcases and everything in the back of the truck, and we're just going to walk on the plane with no gear or luggage to check in, which was fine. And Dawn ended up riding with me.
Okay.
So the rest of the band all went to Dayton to catch a flight.
Okay.
So of course, I get Don up and we're on the road. Well, then he wants to stop and have a breakfast and stuff. Well, it didn't occur to me that there was a sound check time in St. Charles.
Okay.
It just wasn't something we were discussing. Like, well, we need to be there by such and such a time because sound check is at this time.
Right.
So we burned an hour at a place getting some coffee and having some breakfast, and Dawn, basically waking up and getting into the groove. Well, we burned an hour there.
Okay.
So we're on the road, and Troy's just like, how you guys coming along? And I said, well, we'll be there about 3:30. Oh shit, sound check's at 2:30.
Well, Don doesn't normally do sound check anyway, does he?
No, but the guys didn't have their instruments.
Oh, they didn't have their gear.
I had it in the truck.
Nice.
So we're trying to get with the program, move along there pretty quick. We were making some pretty good time until we hit the Chicago traffic.
Right.
Ground to a halt.
Yeah, no
And
kidding.
it just creeped along for well over an hour at about 13 miles an hour,
Right.
through this one segment. And, what happened with the guys is they flew and got to O'Hare, but then they had to sit on the tarmac for an hour because they didn't have a gate.
Right. This episode of the CMS Network is brought to you by our sponsor, Blackout Coffee. If you are a coffee lover, you will love what they are selling over at Blackout Coffee. Make sure you get yourself some. The only thing woke about this company is the drinker of the coffee, because it gives you quite a jolt. I am a personal fan of the Brutal Awakening Dark Roast, but everybody's a little bit different. Make sure you get what is your favorite today. Go to blackoutcoffee.com. Use the promo code CHRIA20 to save 20% on your first order. It's that simple. So one more time, blackoutcoffee.com. That is the link, or use the full link if you're going to shop around, that is scrolling on the bottom, and get yourself some of the best coffee that is out there today. blackoutcoffee.com.
So we ended up getting in St. Charles right about the same time they got there anyway.
Nice.
So they were there maybe 30 minutes ahead of us.
Right.
So it all worked out just fine. So we basically got into St. Charles at like 4:00. I was thinking 3:30, but with traffic and everything, we got there at 4. Well, they got there at like 3:45.
Okay.
So it all worked out just fine.
Right.
Well, the Arcata show is always good. And George Lynch, as I told you, he was opening both nights. Mm-hmm. Well, he's got a gig now where he schedules guitar lessons with him at the hotel.
Okay.
At each of the stops, which, he's legendary George Lynch.
Sure.
But the amount of money is pretty ridiculous to do this. But you would not imagine how many people were waiting in line. And Jaron was working with George. So he was shuttling these people in and out, of the hotel room.
Mm-hmm.
You're next, and they got to sit there. Well, the first night in Lima, George shows up like 2 minutes before he has to go on and do his closing numbers with Dokken.
Okay.
As soon as he's done, out the door. Don't even see him.
Right.
Not hello, goodbye, kiss my ass, nothing, gone.
Nice.
Next night, St. Charles,
yeah.
we're all sitting in the little, kind of like the little room where they have all the food service and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the kitchen area or whatever.
He comes in just as jovial as ever, walks up to me, puts his hands on my shoulder. Hey, buddy, how are you? It's so good to see you, man. Everything good, and
haven't seen you in a while, buddy.
Just glad-handed John and Chris and BJ, and walking over to Don and giving him a hug like they hadn't seen each other. And and how's the house? How's everything going? You guys doing good? And it's like, this is George?
Right.
Because he's never like that.
Sure.
But it was like a whole different person. It was the strangest thing. Just like flipping a switch.
Right. That's funny.
Just the oddest thing. And then not only that, because George usually keeps to himself, or he goes into his dressing room and closes the door. He comes out, sits at the table, has catering service with everybody, just striking up conversations. Like he was just like, wow, boy, George is awful chatty tonight. Just a rare thing. So I got to chit chat with George a little bit.
Okay.
And I was telling him, I was telling him about our little inside joke about the George Lynch phone.
Yeah, sure.
So I told him about the number of times he's called the show for an interview and his phone was always shit.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And he goes, yeah, he says it's probably been worse now. And he's got hearing aids now.
Okay.
He says, so it's even worse now with the hearing aids. You know, he says, because talking on the phone is just, you know, terrible because of the frequency differences, you know, with the hearing aids and the phone and all that other stuff. But it was just kind of very strange to have George in such a upbeat, happy-go-lucky, jovial mood, you know?
Right.
Just chatting it up with everybody like old friends.
I saw he cut his hair.
He did. He got this military cut, which as soon as Don didn't even know George was closing the show.
Okay.
He says, I didn't look at the schedule. I had no idea. He comes out and so I walked over and go, what are you doing here? He goes, I didn't know I was playing with you. And he goes, what's up with that military haircut? Because it's cut real short on the side, and then he's got it all long on the top. You know, it's just kind of funny. He looks like a cadet or something. But even on stage, George was acting kind of goofy because Don took his hat off and set it on the drum riser. So George picked it up and put it on, and he's parading around wearing it.
Nice. All right.
It's just like, this is not the same guy I've known, you know, for years, because usually he keeps to himself and he's a little moody, but man, he must have been on his happy pills or something.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, but it was good. And, you know, got to get outside a little bit after the show. You know, so many people hang out after the show just waiting with all kinds of, you know, Dokken stuff to get signed and stuff. So I had to do my thing and corral everybody and get everybody lined up so they could, you know, get their picture and go, and whatever it is that they wanted, you know, just move them along pretty fast.
Right.
You know, because Don said, man, I'm just not in the mood for this. He says, but if we can move everybody along pretty quick, he says, I'll take pictures and do what I can, you know. So we were able to, there was like 25 people standing outside.
Wow.
And then they had a meet and greet prior to the show. So there was like 18 couples, you know, where they were getting pictures with George and Don and, you know, the whole thing. So there was a whole meet and greet thing before the show and a meet and greet thing after the show. And, you know, so diehard fans, man.
Oh, good on them. If they want to see the show still and they haven't seen it before, go ahead.
Yeah. But just the opportunity to shake a hand or take a picture or say hello, or, you know, of course you have to hear the whole story about, I've been listening to you since Breaking the Chains came out. And I was, you know, I was only 13 and I was just a junior high school kid and blah, blah, blah. And I've loved you guys ever since. And, you know, you hear every one of those stories, which is kind of funny. But Don took the time and listened to everybody and, you know, shook a hand and took a picture, and he says, all right, guys, I got to go, you know, kind of worn down here.
That's it. I'm out.
Yeah, that's it. But overall, good shows, just fun, you know, people just having a good time.
That's cool.
And band sounded tight, you know, Chris, BJ, John, of course, they were all, you know, doing their thing.
Sure. They know their parts.
They do. And of course, the question's always, how's Chris? Chris doing okay? Is Chris all right?
No.
Yep, Chris is fine.
He's terrible. He died. You should lead with that sometime. You didn't hear? He passed away last Tuesday.
Right.
You should just lead with that and roll with it, see how long it goes.
Then, of course, my buddy Sal did not make the show.
What? No girlfriend?
No girlfriend Sal. He bitched out at the last moment.
Oh.
So he didn't make the show, and BJ and John and Chris are always entertained by Sal's antics. He goes, "Where's your crew tonight? Where's the crew?
Nice.
Where's Sal at?" I said, "Yeah, he kind of bitched out on us. Didn't come." He goes, "Yeah, that guy, when he gets lubed up, he makes us all laugh." So Sal, you were missed. No Sal.
Why didn't Sal go?
Well,
just busy or whatever.
He claims he has a doctor's appointment on Tuesday, so he couldn't go out on
Tuesday. This was on Thursday?
Friday night.
Friday night?
Yeah.
Well, you gotta rest up for those doctor's appointments 5 days away.
Apparently so. So I was just like, okay, take care of yourself. Do what you got to do. But
That's hilarious.
Yeah, but yeah, 3 days out was just kind of, just fun, just running around
That's
and
cool.
stuff.
Brace yourself for the wildest ride of your life. It's the craziest book Chris Akin has ever written, and other things I should not say. Get ready for over 500 pages of pure, unfiltered debauchery. From his military years, Chris Akin spills the shocking stories of sex, partying, violence, and the stuff that's so wild it's probably illegal. You've heard the tales on the Classic Metal Show, but never like this. Don't wait. Get your copy now at chrisakin.net before the censors try to shut it down.